see anything to look at.
It says sign in.
Did you want to sign it?
I haven't signed it yet.
State your name and sign it, please.
I think we are short one chair. Oh, right here.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. You wanna, we can pull you down here, come on. We'll just bring you there. And if you would hand the sign-in sheet. So I'd like to, call the meeting to order. It's April 10th, 6 p.m. Would everybody please stand for the pledge? David, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak?
I'm here, but I don't want to speak right now.
Are you, I'm sorry, are you part of the Climate Ambassador Committee or just a member of the public that's here?
Member of the public, I just became a member of the Sustainability Board.
Excellent, excellent, okay. I'm Rochelle Lawndales, I'm the consultant.
Steve Gillum.
Steve, nice to meet you, nice to have you, thank you for coming. So all the public's one of us, but I'm just trying to keep to protocol. So tonight, this is your last meeting. And I do have more, I haven't gotten there yet, but
It's the sign-in sheet too.
we did 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 8 of these. Does somebody have 2?
I don't have one.
They are struck together pretty easily, because I had 3 when I first sat down.
Well,
I
it's
didn't
3
realize
pages.
until a minute
Oh, I
ago.
thought you had a bunch of
It's
giving them out.
three
Now
I
it's
did,
pages.
in
yeah, there were 3 stuck together. And I looked down, and I saw who didn't have one, and just set
Okay.
them
I'm
down.
gonna go grab a sweater, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Grab a what?
A sweater. So as you know, we've been working on a variety of different things. I'll give you an update. The comp plan language for the changes to the coastal community control line, it's been a long day, construction, CCCL, coastal construction control line. Talk much? No. Hereby known as CCCL, is moving towards council in their packet for next week. The LDR portion of that change will come back to the P&Z board because we've made some substantial, some not so substantial changes, but enough changes where we felt comfortable that we wanted to bring it back to the P&Z board. So it'll come back to the P&Z board next month and then go to council. Hi, Mayor, how are you? So that's just a little update. So tonight, we want to kind of give a final, I'm going to say blessing. It's not really by any means a final, in final ordinance form, obviously, but we just want to get some thoughts and consensus on moving forward with the incentive system that we've talked about for many moons. And Courtney and I kind of came to what the overall premise is. First and foremost, we need to understand what the goal is. We've got a lot of, and you have the zoning maps in front of you. What you can't see on the zoning maps are what you would see on the property appraiser's website, which are kind of the age of structures, the development, and the values, and what's existing on the properties now. But most of you have lived here a long time and kind of know what's there. And you know that we've got a lot of aging and decaying and vacant and undevelopable sites that are contributing to environmental degradation. And it's not new development, but it's the old existing development that is the greater contributor to environmental degradation. So the whole idea behind this is to be able to improve the environment and at the same time invoke the sustainability measures that we really, really want to have in new development and redevelopment. So that's pretty much our goal, is to promote environmental upgrades and use the sustainability measures in redevelopment and new development of properties with frontage on the west side of A1A using an incentive form-based system. So the overall premise is, let's take New York Pizza. Everybody knows where New York Pizza is, right? It's vacant.
Yeah.
It's
Which building?
a New York Pizza
What intersection?
on Cassian and A1A. And it's, you know, it's another one that's bit the dust, and there's really not a lot that can be done there under the existing codes, and so that site will continue to be a detriment to the community unless we can incentivize, hi, how are you, come on, chair. Unless we can incentivize some major redevelopment. So right now, and John, I'm gonna pick on you, okay? If John buys that property and all he wants to do is renovate that building, he's gonna put lipstick on the pig and just paint it up and clean up the inside and rent it out, not do anything to the site, not do anything else to the property, then he's just gonna work in the code. Whatever the code says, 35 feet, if he can put units there, 10 units to the acre, and he just comes in and he paints it up and fixes it up. But if he really wants to make an investment in that site and have something that will give him a start of a rate of return, then if he brings the property, if you bring the property up to all current stormwater standards, as required by law, hi, how are you?
Good.
As required by law, and St. John's, if you do all your flood attenuation, landscaping, reduced parking, then right off the bat, you can go to 45 feet and get an additional 10 units to the acre.
Why not just say meets all current code requirements?
Well, that's basically to meet all current stormwater, flood attenuation, landscaping, reduced.
No, but I'm talking.
Oh, no, that's a
Everything
given.
else.
Oh, yeah, that's a given. Yeah, that's a given. But we're talking about just, you know, the environmental side of things. It's always a given that you have to meet codes.
No, well, no, because right now, if the setback is, a prime example is 1 block north.
But if you're grandfathered, you're grandfathered.
That's the point. If you choose to ignore the grandfather and fix all deficiencies and meet the code.
I don't know that you can do that. If they want to use one wall and tear down the rest of the building and keep that footprint, I think if they're going to do all the rest of this, then, you know, they're making a substantial investment. So I think, you know, if we're looking at a setback issue, that, you know, there may be a little gray there, but
It's not
basically.
strictly an all or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to have some flexibility in order to encourage this, because they may need to use that one wall, they may need to stay in that setback. So we want to give the city some flexibility in being able to, you know, address those kinds of situations. But this is really to, you know, bring it up to current code on stormwater, flood attenuation, reduce the parking, and add landscaping. Those are the key components to eliminate the environmental degradation that's coming from those properties.
If I can interrupt you for a second with a question, when you say reduce the parking, are you referring exclusively to like impermeable surface or parking in general of any sort?
No, you know, reducing the impervious surface.
Impervious, yes.
Yeah, reducing the impervious surface. So, for example, if you have a 0.25 acre site, let's say right now you could do 2.5 units Well, that's, the reason they're not being redeveloped is because that doesn't give you any rate of return. So the sweetener is, you'll get an additional 3.75 units or the ability to have 6.25 units. So when we see numbers like 15 or 22 or 10, you think, oh my gosh, that's, that's huge and a lot of
How do
numbers.
you get 3.75?
Well, 0.25 times, I was going to the next one in terms of the 15. But just to give you an example of the numbers.
That's the
So,
increase.
So, on the next one, at 15 units to the acre, and I'm just, doing a hypothetical example, that's 6 units. So we're not talking about, a lot of units, so it's really quite low, it's quite small, even though you're seeing 10 units to the acre, or 15 units to the
Well,
acre.
I'm having trouble with how this arithmetic works, and the devil is in the details. Number one, they get 2 units. If it's a quarter acre,
It depends on the size of the lot.
Yeah.
So, if you have 0.25 acres times 10,
that's
0.25 times 10 is 2.5.
Okay, so in reality, you get 2 units.
2.
There isn't such a thing
Correct,
as half an acre.
correct.
Okay.
Truncated.
If you then add
Another,
10 units per acre, 2.5, they go from 2 to 5.
yeah,
Okay?
That's right.
And then,
That's
number
right.
3, if we move
it's
there,
6.25.
are you saying that you're adding,
3.75 to 2.5, and that gets them 6.25 or 6 units to the acre. I mean, or 60 total units is what they're gonna end up with.
When you say units, is that residential?
Yeah, because we're talking about, a mixed-use project.
So will there still be commercial space?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
no, I'm still, because the
15 times a quarter, what's 0.25 of 15?
And it's 3.75.
3.25.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Okay,
get
so
an
they go-
additional, it's
okay.
get an additional, it's not get 15, it's get an additional 15.
So they go from
It's 3.75.
5 to 8
No,
for number 3.
no,
Number 1, they get 2 units.
hang on, let me explain. So, and we're gonna walk through this.
Is it fair to say, forgive me for just one, is it fair to say that by meeting all the requirements, you're allowed 25 units per acre?
No. Well, you've added the
25
10 to the
times
existing.
0.25 is 6.25.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
you're
the
getting
10 is
it's an
original, and
additional.
then an
Correct.
additional
That's
15,
right.
so it's 25.
That's exactly right. That's right. So, and you get to go to 55 feet. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. And we hear 25 units to the acre, and we go, oh my God, but when you put that times 0.25, that gives you 6 units.
Mhm.
So it really, on the ground, that's not a lot of units.
Not that dense.
And it in itself may not make a project feasible, but it's a good start. And it's I think it's a great start to see if we can get some improvements along M1A. So, if you do those, for number 2, if you do those things, you would be able to go right off the bat 45 feet and get 10 units per acre additional. Then if you do other things, which adds sustainability measures, adds to the cost of that development, you will get to go to 55 feet and the additional 15 units per acre. So you have to do the minimum of number 2 plus 1 from each of these. So what we thought is you have to use 1 from each category. If you only use 4 of them, well, you only earn 5 feet additional height from the 45 and only 10 units to the acre. And if you use 8 components, then you earn the full 10 feet to 55 feet and you're on the maximum 15 units per acre.
And your thought is that all of the items under each of these main categories are equal weight in terms of environmental impact?
No, no.
So I could, if I were building something, I could get a one Energy Star refrigerator, check, which most of them are now. But I could do that, and
Right, it wouldn't be just a refrigerator.
if that's all I had in my business.
You'd go under the Energy Star program.
I could share parking with another group
Yes,
there.
and we would want you to, that would reduce the the impervious surface, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm not sure what some of these things are, I'm not sure what CPTED principles are.
Crime prevention through environmental design.
Of course.
What's it called?
Crime prevention through environmental design. What? Never heard that?
But it just seems to be that some of these are weighted more. For example,
And
going
I-
to
and
be
I would
an
agree.
LED building, that requires a lot more work than just buying something that happens to be
I
Energy Star
was
certified.
having a problem with some of these, some of them are,
Some are simple,
Superficial.
and you're gonna do them anyhow.
and
And that's what we want to talk about tonight, and I just hadn't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Is that we'd like to assign some priority,
Yes,
to these.
the weight.
yeah, if
Yes.
you put weights against them, and then instead of minimum, you could say a minimum of, from each
Well,
unit, but then you say you have to accumulate so many points.
Well, points is, we really didn't want to do a point system. I think what we were kind of looking at is
Why
really,
not?
Well, let her answer.
it's really because what we were thinking is, for example, if you're going to go lead B4, that's like key. That's the top of the, that's creme de la creme, okay? So if you, that would be like a star. So there could be like 2 or 3 stars in each category. And so if you, to get to the top of the list, top of the food chain, you'd have to pick one of those creme de la cremes. And then if you're, the others can just be lower cost and lower status, if you will.
For example, what's the, on buildings that's go LEED B4, what's the comparable enhancement under land?
Well,
Is there one thing that you guys have determined to be just,
Can I chime in?
you
more
can-
about?
you
Yeah.
can-
I've worked on over like 80 lead projects before.
Yeah.
First off, you can only go lead 4. That means, so there's no lead 3 or 2 or anything like that. So if you did want to go lead certified, whether it be 8.2 under buildings there, it says go lead platinum or silver. So in order to go platinum, gold, which is on here, or silver, you have to go lead B4. So items 1 and 2 under building
they're the same.
are kind of the same thing. And as far as go lead platinum, there are fewer lead platinum projects than there are states in the United States. So,
It's hard to get.
so if any building wanted to go lead platinum, they should not only creme de la creme on it, they should get way more incentives than that, because to get a lead platinum project, pretty much, you'd have to have every single item under every single,
Generally.
under land, buildings, innovation, and transportation in order to do
Yeah.
that.
Or I could just build a couple of stills under my building and I'd be done.
Yeah,
That's-
so, yeah, as far as
very-
weight it goes, yeah, so
Yeah.
a lead platinum project, yeah, like, so you'd have to do everything on this list.
Mhm.
So I think that they should get a lot more incentive to do that.
Now, so my question, do you have anything in the land category that you regard as, more valuable than the rest of them?
Well, if you're gonna rip up your entire pavement and, do new, stormwater management systems above and beyond, the minimum requirements, install under drains, that's gonna cost you, but it's not nearly what the architecture and so forth that's, required under the LEED program. So the answer really is no. One of the things that I had originally thought was if you're gonna go LEED, that that just gets you the whole thing.
Yeah, maybe that
back.
has its own category.
I had done a
That'd be good to
tiered,
call that out.
I had done a tiered program. We kind of went through this thought process of tiering it, and that you'd have to do one from, each tier, or X amount from each tier. But it started to get too complicated, so we wanted to kind of keep it simple. But we do think that there are some things that are more important than others, or some things that if you're gonna do them and you're gonna put that kind of money into it, then you should be rewarded right off the bat.
Do you think that I mean, as you said, the LEED Platinum, there are fewer of those projects in the country than there are states, so silver or gold or whatever other.
LEED Platinum.
Right, but I mean, so do you think that, I mean, do I understand this right, that it would make sense to have a LEED certification in its own category entirely separate from because it's sort of, all these other things are subsets of that?
Yeah, I guess, well, not to be too bold about it, but I mean, if we're trying to protect the environment and reduce our carbon footprint, I think all new construction should be LEED certified regardless. But if we're talking about retrofitting existing buildings, to your point, yeah, I think a LEED certification, because there's LEED certified, silver, gold, and platinum. So even to get LEED certified, yeah, I think that should be a separate category. LEED gold, I think, to be LEED certified in any ways, whether it be certified gold or certified silver, gold, or platinum, they should have an entirely different set of incentives for that, because pretty much everything on this list would go into even LEED certified. I mean, you'd have to take,
That's true.
80% of everything on this
That's
list
true.
to get LEED certified, 90% to be LEED silver or gold, kind of depending.
And why not leave LEED as a separate
Category.
Yeah.
category?
Yeah, I'm all in favor
Or why
of
not
that.
just require it?
I'd say for all new construction,
I love what you
I'd love
said,
it,
because
all
that,
new
I could
construction needs
totally
to be
buy
at least
into
LEED
this
certified.
55-foot thing, that everything was LEED.
Well, and you have to, I mean, that kind of begs the question, at some point, I mean, you do have to take into consideration at some point, like what, what's realistic about, everything that we're trying to accomplish. I mean, if we make the, if we make the standard so high to get any kind of incentives, then, it ends up becoming kind of irrelevant, because, it just costs so much that, I mean, ultimately, one day that happens, but, we're still gonna be in the same situation we are now, watching everybody else is around us,
And we don't have the internal capacity to do LEED at this point in time. And I think the thought is, and we'll talk about it, Courtney may, determine differently, but I think thinking is at this point that we want to take baby steps and get to full LEED certification, get our own buildings LEED certified, and so on and so forth. But at this point in time, just take baby steps, carrots and sticks, and try to ultimately get there. But I think we actually even talked about at some point having LEED as kind of its own, master carrot. If you do that, you're in like Flynn. And
is it possible that below, say, LEED certified, and forgive me, I mean, I don't understand that terribly well, but is it possible that, say, less than what it requires just to get LEED certified, that you're able to negotiate with a developer on, well, here's something that we'd really like to see on this site because such and such is particularly problematic here. Flooding is really bad here, or this is really bad here, or that's really bad here. And if you'll do this, then I think we could be kind of generous on, what you're looking for. Or does that leave the door open too much to?
there's always negotiation.
I mean, people saying, "Oh, well, you did that to us."
Sure.
We don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
can't
arbitrary
be-
because you don't like us.
We
or
can't
something.
be arbitrary about that. So I think we're better off going to, prioritization, which is one of the things that we wanted to accomplish with y'all tonight. and seeing what's really important and what's, what's maybe not as important, to the group, and then we'll start drafting the ordinance and taking it through the process.
The lead, part of the problem with the lead is it's expensive to get the piece of paper. But there is lead equivalent, and we have, as I understand it, at least 2 residents who are qualified to
Under the Green Building Program?
do lead. You plus Dylan,
Well, you're lead, but,
yeah, Dylan Hanson, that's all.
We're both doing.
Okay, and so, okay, that's right, the Dylans.
yeah, D squared.
That I could see a dual step, one of them would be lead equivalent, and the next one being lead certified, and that covers a lot of ground. That might be your 2 and 3, let's say, just off the top of my head. And then you've got this other stuff, which I'd be inclined to winnow down a bit. Like, you do need to be careful of this in case somebody goes to Lowe's and buys a refrigerator and says, oh, I got those.
Yeah, no,
ones."
that's not the intent.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah.
that's what it mostly stated, otherwise, or I
Yeah,
could
that's
put
the point,
one
the-
palm tree in and I named
Yeah,
it.
no, these are concepts, and so we're still talking, 10,000 feet, just in general concepts.
Okay, because,
So
Is
what
it
do you
possible-
need from us then for this? What do you need?
Prior to-
What would help you?
What we're hoping to get out of this is that you like and agree on the overall goal and premise, and that you have prioritized things within each of these categories, and if we've left something out, add something. If you don't want something in there, suggest that it be taken out, and basically just kind of go through these and determine what are some of the most important things that we want to see as a community in order to create this incentive program.
I have no problem with the goal statement. Why don't we get that off the table?
Thank
and
you.
move on?
Okay. So the premise,
I-
okay. So now,
And what is
Everybody
it?
else fine?
I'm
Yeah, let's-
looking at heads shaking,
So
yes?
number 3, X amount is what, it leads us down to the incentives list?
No. All I was doing was dealing with the bold statement at the top, the goal.
We already moved to the premise. We moved down.
Well, we hadn't come to consensus.
Oh, have we? I thought we moved to the
I
premise.
saw, yeah, I did, I saw
Yeah.
head shaking.
So we moved. So
I move that we accept the premise as is written.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay,
All right, so
discussion.
number 3, what does the X refer to then? Is it, you heard the incentives list?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, if you do this, then you get that.
I think it's creative to have those items in there. What I have a problem with is everything below the premise. All of that, because I think those have to be weighted and put in different categories, because they're not the same thing. And I could come up with a really cheap way to do everything and meet the list. I don't think that's the intent.
No, it's not, and so that's why when we get to the list, it may be, under land, number 1 and 2 may be the top 2 most important things. I would suggest, and we'll come back to your motion in 1 second, this is just discussion. Like the top 4, or the top 5 are the most important that I would suggest or to 6 would be the most important ones in that. The others are good, but not necessary. So yes, so that's what the X means, and then we can discuss how we get there. So there was a motion and a second on the floor to accept the premise. Is everybody good with that?
The end of sentence 2 looks like it's missing something.
Yeah, that was just me moving too fast out the door, getting them printed. It was a 0.25 acre site would have a maximum of 2.5 units to the acre, so 0.25 acres times 10 is 2.5, and then you add another 10 units per acre, 2.5, so that gives you 5 units.
So that particular site would be able to have 5 units.
So item 2 on the premise, that's currently available, right, to,
No, because the maximum height right now is 35 feet.
that's 35 feet?
Mhm.
Okay.
35 feet and 10 units to the
You
acre.
get 10 units per
Yeah.
acre.
Mhm.
That would be an addition.
So right now they can get 10 units per acre?
Right, under the current code, in commercial or the RM3 district, the height requirement is 35 feet, and the maximum density is 10 units
See,
per
you're having the
acre.
same problem I had. Number 1 should say 35 feet and maximum of 10.
Yeah, and that was a given,
Then
but
you
you're,
do
we'll add that.
45 with additional 10 units. Or instead of additional, you say 20.
Yeah, I think you say 20, that makes it.
I think
And
that'd
then
be
number
helpful.
3 is 55 feet and 25 units. And you don't have to do arithmetic.
You know, the worry that I would suggest is that when you see 25 units to the acre, people freak out because they don't really know that that's a baseline plus,
So if
and that you have to earn that.
Well, there's
You-
still
you
minimum.
You get your 10 units to the acre, so you get your 2.5 units to the acre regardless of what you do, okay? So the additional ones are on top of that, so it's,
Isn't it an if and then statement? If you do this, then you get.
but it's just a matter of perception, it's a matter of perception.
Yeah, and actually, I would posit that if we have a contentious election, we've had those in the past, that if you say 10, 10, and 15, and you state it so people didn't see the 25, somebody that doesn't like this is going to say, they're trying to sneak something on you, and they really need 25 units per acre, and you kind of walk right into that.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't even disagree with the idea, I just, it reads.
Yeah, I have to
But the
confess, it kind of
problem-
confused me,
Okay.
the 10 for number 1.
And I'm all for, you know, transparency and visibility, but if you go to the list and you only use 4, you're only gonna get 10 units to the acre and 5 feet. If you use 8, you get to 15, so you might not get to 25.
That's right.
You know, you
So
might
you
not.
put, instead of saying additional, put up to, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we played with that. We played with that, a maximum of.
I think I agree, the additional term is just.
A maximum of.
Because here, they would say up to.
No, here, so it would say
Just say a maximum of, you know,
an additional 15.
Okay, or
What you
maximum.
really need is 25, up to 25 units, right?
Yeah, okay.
The other thing about all the incentives,
I'm sorry, did we,
No,
before you go to the incentives, I want to lock up the vote on the motion that's still on the floor, if that's okay.
The other thing with the premise is just, Henry County incorporates incentive list. I mean, if we're talking about giving a weighted or a point system to some of these energy conservation measures, it kind of clouds or muddies the water for the premise, I feel like a little bit, but maybe that's just me. I don't.
Well, the premise is, in general, that you have 3 levels. And it might turn out those 3 levels aren't done exactly the way we're already planning with the wording anyway.
Yeah, this was just to get discussion going. You know, basically, if you do nothing to that building in sight, and all you want to do is put lipstick on the pig, you're going to do it within all the confines of the code. 35 feet, 10 units to the acre, yada, yada, yada. If you are going to upgrade that site, you can go right off the bat, 45 feet, and earn up to an additional 10 units to the acre.
Simply by meeting all the newest code requirements having to do with stormwater.
Flood attenuation, landscaping.
what if you want to stay 35 feet and is there any advantage to staying at 35 feet and doing some of these upgrades?
Sure, I mean,
That's a great question.
yeah,
That's a great question.
Yeah, there should be perks if you don't add units, but you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there.
you know, it is a great question, and we hope that people will do that. What do we offer them?
That's the question. That's exactly the question. I don't have the answer.
And, I mean, we can't offer financial incentives because that hurts the city, you know, the city's pocketbook. So, I mean, the only thing that you might be able to do for that
You get a
is.
plaque.
I don't think you have to. I mean, I agree that's a good question, but I don't think you have to. I mean, whether the developer wants to put that on there at that time or not, they certainly have the opportunity to, I mean, they've still earned those credits, so to speak, on that site, and they're able to do it anytime later on if they so choose.
And that's where my head was going, that it becomes an entitlement on the property that is valuable to them.
Yeah.
On sale or to another.
Yeah, when you sell the property,
So you're
yeah, this is
increasing
qualified, you can put another floor on it.
So you're increasing the future value of that site for the owner, but, you know, there are potentially things that we could do. I mean, you could look at, reduced building permit fees, or waiving building permit fees, or,
Is there any direct financial impact to improving your property in terms of reducing your operating costs? I'm asking the question very generally.
all of these.
Less water, less electricity,
Yeah, any
less
of-
this, less that, and is
any-
there a business
any of
case for
that.
that? Well, that's going to be case specific, right?
It's gonna be case, but it's proven that most of those, and lead systems, and most of those systems will give you a rate of return over a period of time. What that is depends on what you do.
There's a lot of upfront costs, we have the long-term
Yeah,
costs.
and you
Typically-
get-
I understand, I'm just raising the
I
question.
mean, and some things you get back sooner, and some things it takes a long time.
Well, there is one thing you could trade off. That's density for height. If somebody really has no desire to go to 45, or 55 especially, to take an example, Dave Allison in the corner of Cinnamon and
Mhm.
A1F.
Mhm.
I think he wanted 11 units per acre, 11 units.
Just 11 units, I think.
Okay? He's not gonna get that, I think, with any of these numbers. I don't think he's got enough real estate there. But the point is, if he did some of this stuff, let's assume it's not big enough. He can only get 7 or 8 units.
Okay.
And he says, I really don't need to go to 55 feet, I'll do all this stuff. You say, fine, instead of height, we'll give you units. The city could use more smaller units. We don't need more 30,000 square foot, $700,000 condo units.
Agreed.
So-
So that's one of the things we're trying to get to here.
So then, you're doing something beneficial with more smaller units. They're gonna necessarily be smaller because they can't take up all the real estate.
What
So-
if we did instead of per acre basis, we just give a number of units? We don't make it a per acre.
What if
So
I'm
in essence-
okay, I'm redeveloping Atlantic Plaza, you're not gonna give me as many units there as you would on Dave Allison's property. It needs to be
Proportionate.
proportional.
Mhm.
But it could be that you could trade, and I haven't thought about it, 10 feet for
10
some
units,
number of
5
units or some percentage, we're doing percentage changes, you know, doubling and things like that, that some additional number of units. That would seem to me, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm willing to let people play with the idea.
Might some of those things be determined on like a case-specific basis and then, you know, built into, added into the code when it becomes relevant?
Yeah, and there's another way to do this, a way that I've done it in other communities with, some things like this and other kinds of architectural features, is for each thing that you do, you get X amount of units from the Jelly Bean Bowl. So in essence, what we're doing is we're creating a Jelly Bean Bowl by taking the units away from South
So you
Hazard.
get fractional units for doing this or doing that or whatever.
Yes, yes.
And if you do a LEED Platinum, we just throw the units in.
Exactly.
That, I think, has a beauty. Then, but we're still doing a ranking, we're putting a number of units against each.
Well, not against each line, but let's say we have priority items. So if you do, for each priority item you do, maybe you get 3 units. I'm just making up numbers. So for each priority item you do within a category, you get 2 or 3 units. And so the more things you do, the more units you get. And you could say, if we're going to take lead out of it, that's going to become its own category. You get your full 20 feet and X amount of units. So, that's another way to approach this, is by saying for every thing you do, you get X, or for every 3 things
One
you
could
do,
be
you
worth
get
a
1.
quarter unit, one could be worth a half a unit.
No, you have to keep it in solid things.
Well, I was trying to address
rational.
that, I was trying to address the priority issue, that some things are bigger and more important than others.
So, like, for instance, for each of the priority things you do, you get 3 units to the acre. For the second priority, you get 1 unit to the acre, or one additional unit out of the jelly bean,
Well, let's say
not
we're
out of
doing
acres.
something in 4 categories.
Mhm.
So even if you get 1 unit for a priority, you're already at 4 units
Mhm.
per acre.
Mhm. Well, no, not at per acre, because we're going out of the jelly bean bowl. Now we're just talking about units, not on a per acre basis. We're just going back to units, not a density count. It's just, here's the bowl, there's 100, 200 units in the bowl, whatever it is. You do 1 from column A, 1 from column B, 2 from column C, you get X amount of units.
First come, first served,
First come, first served.
I think kind of to your point, so what's your name?
Pardon?
What's your name?
Sheila.
Sheila, sorry. Some of these things are kind of low-hanging fruit. If you were to take, one from each of these to just maximize your incentive, why not have a, mandatory for any kind of retrofitting or new construction, like a site energy or environmental assessment of the property that can help identify for that specific project what measures, need to be taken, and then kind of rank it from there. Some of these, like LED lighting, for instance, is located on 2 of these. So yeah, I mean, you can kind of do the bare minimum and still get the maximum benefit for it.
Not necessarily.
Having an environmental assessment, someone just to go in to identify the key measures that need to be taken, and, that's how you get your incentives for that. Energy Star Manager, which I didn't see on here too, is just
That's
kind
the Energy Star program.
of,
I was doing the whole Energy Star program, so I'm just a refrigerator.
yeah, somewhat, more it's a step below, the lead certified or any kind of level for it, but that also gives, tangible statistics for that building going forward. So you have to enroll in Energy Star Manager. That way you can see that the upgrades that you have done, how your energy costs have gone down, how your water usage has gone down, the environmental impact of that. And I think, enrollment in Energy Star Manager should probably be mandatory, regardless. Even if you haven't done any upgrades whatsoever, I mean, it'll be helpful to the property owner just to know that they spent 10% more on electricity than they did the prior year, for doing nothing. It might even inspire them to do some of these upgrades.
I mean, I agree completely. I think the list as is shouldn't go forward. It's not helpful in determining whether we're going to have anything that's going to really help the environment, or somebody can just scooch by in the bare minimum possible. And quantifying it in some way, using energy efficiency measures, I think would be more helpful to the businesses as well, because then they'll see how much they'll be able to save.
And Energy Star Manager is a prerequisite for LEED, so I mean, that's kind of not the half step, but
It's
the
a good
step below.
It's a good step forward.
And it doesn't, I'm pretty sure it's free to enroll, or it's, maybe $50 for the year or something like that. It's a very low cost just to enroll in that. You don't even have to have Energy Star appliances to do so. I'm pretty sure it's a nonprofit organization that just helps you track your property, home, business, energy usage, water usage, waste management, things like that. It'll give you your carbon footprint at the end of it. So that's good for the business owner, homeowner, whoever it may be, and also good for the city, because that will give us kind of the benchmarking and baseline. For the-
So, I think we want to try to keep things as simple as we can. So, if there are things on these lists, and basically we kind of just threw a lot of things in here to get people thinking and talking. And like I said, I had a 3-tier program, and that was getting a little bit complicated, because, you know, we're really trying to create something that's simple, that when Jazzy goes to buy her own building, she wants to get her own building, she will go, yeah, I can do this because I can put in this money, I'm going to, it's a feasible project, I can make it work, I'm going to get a return on my investment, and I'm going to, you know, the end result is I'm going to help the environment and the community. So let's come at this a different way, because this has created some negativity, and this is a very positive thing. So I would like to come back to, let's take the list aside, and the premise, and the motion on the floor of the premise, basically the approach, if everybody's in agreement with the approach.
The approach being 3 levels.
The 3 levels.
With number of units and height being the jelly beans.
Exactly. So.
Is that what your motion is?
I'll restate it.
Yeah.
I'll restate it. All right, so I'll move that we,
Withdraw, you want to withdraw?
yeah, because we're gonna have to, I mean, something got added, I mean, I learned something, one small thing about part of this after having, you know, made that motion. But I don't know that we'll hammer that whole thing out, you know, with the details that come below it tonight, really. I think that I think that, you know, we're talking about LEED certification, and then, you know, and then up from that or beyond that or better than that, or however you want to say it. Yeah, and then, no, I understand, and then, no, he said there's LEED certified, and then there's LEED silver and LEED gold and platinum, so there's that. And then what we're probably, I mean, more realistically dealing with are, you know, let's just say subsets of LEED certified. You know, some, and I don't know if it's possible to, you know, to establish some percentage of, you know, if you're 50% of what's required for LEED certified, or 75% of what's required for LEED certified, or are there other less stringent programs than LEED certification that could be used for the lower levels of incentive? Am I making myself clear?
Okay, well, that's kind of what I was getting at with Energy Star Manager. So
Yes.
So that's going to allow you to track your reduction in, again, reduction in energy, reduction in water.
That's kind of entry level, I think, the way you described it.
So, well, I mean, it can be as advanced as you'd like it to be, but I'd say maybe the tiered system, or if you say it, so everyone has to enroll in Energy Star Manager. It's a free program. Again, it just helps you track your company or properties usage across the board. But if you reduce it by 10% from point A, you know, in a year's time, you get this much. If you reduce it by 15, 20%, it's this much.
That is the best way to quantify it, and there's an incentive, financial incentive as well, because as they reduce the need for energy, they also save money.
But in the Energy Star, is it post-hoc or pre-hoc? In other words?
Right, it's like, I mean, you're kind of giving them the incentive before, you know, I can't, but, you have to guarantee that you're gonna hit 25% energy reduction or water reduction.
Yeah, it's already built.
Yeah.
And the
So
problem,
that's the only-
and the only problem that I can hear Courtney saying about that is that that becomes a code enforcement issue.
Yeah.
And
Somebody has to
then,
police that,
you know,
right?
then somebody's gotta go back into that business, and, the code enforcement have to go in, and they've gotta say, let me see your bills, let me see what you're doing, and that gets into a real.
So then what do they
kinda
do?
hairy
Close some of the
problem.
units and make this
Yeah,
one?
that's an imminent.
Unless we can work something out with FPL.
Even there, I mean, it's still a matter of, you won't know the results until after it's been built, and then it's too
Right.
late. But
That's why I asked, aren't there programs that are less stringent than LEED certification, and that you can say, that we can use as a guideline for, for these, instead of the list that we have so far, where those things are already established?
Yeah, not so much.
These
I think that's kind of what
doesn't
we're trying to create
Well,
here.
these things came from those programs, these things were pulled from those programs.
The lead program, getting certified, as I recall, we started trying to do it for the Schechter Center. It's point driven too, as I recall.
Yes.
Is it structured in such a way that, I think silver, how many, what do you need, 50 points or
I think it's
75?
like 89. but-
89, okay, let's
So,
use
No,
that.
sorry.
Let's use it.
then we can use those very same points.
And you said, and what if we just either conceptually or in fact said, okay, if it takes 100 units, 100 points, whatever it is, to get LEED certified, and they've already got a list with points against each item, do they come in categories,
Mhm.
kind of like these categories?
There's probably twice as many, but they're somewhat.
Because it gets detailed in the HVAC.
Okay, yeah, but if we, in other words, if there's some way we could use that existing program with its existing set of standards, and then we don't have to sit here and
Yes.
reinvent the wheel, and how that's done, I'm not exactly sure. We could plagiarize shamelessly and just go in there and say, okay, if it's building materials, it's here, if it's building design.
It's on the basis of the number of LEED points that they earn.
And a lot of these things came directly from that.
Well, that's what I was saying before.
Why is this going in this direction as opposed to that direction? I'm sure you're
I don't understand what you mean.
utilizing an existing program that measures things and has a system already built in instead of doing this. Well, there's got to be a reason why you went this way.
Yes, because we know that going full LEED certified is expensive, and we're trying to promote redevelopment.
For
and
the
promote-
retrofit, it's expensive?
Yes.
Okay.
There's other rating systems, like the Florida Solar Energy Center has a thing called HERS, Home Energy Rating System. And it might be more applicable to Florida buildings, because I'm not real familiar with LEED, but when you try to have a program to certify buildings for the entire nation, there may be things that you want to do up north that really don't help you out.
They don't apply here, yeah.
Yeah, hers res that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
that has
familiar with
nothing
that?
to do with HVAC systems, but that's what I was saying before with, I think, having it, not necessarily mandatory, but having maybe the city or, I don't know, from the council had just an energy assessment, have an assessor come out and identify the key 4 or 5, we have enough 4 components or 8 components, the top 4 components that you could do that's gonna best.
Yeah, why can't we just go through, like LEED, I don't know how big it is, but pick things that we think.
Again, most of these came out of that category.
Came
I
out of
used
the-
that as the basis.
Dylan,
Do you think, I mean, you're clearly more familiar with LEED than anybody at this table, I think. Do you think that point system that's used to earn those certifications, do you think that those points are applicable to what we're trying to do, and that we can glean from there you know, if it takes 89 points just to reach the initial, the lowest certification, that some percentage of those qualifies you for this incentive
I'd say
and,
it's just as exploitable as this list that we're talking about. You know, how you can do the low hanging fruit and do that. I mean, so having it from a point basis, I mean, you could exploit the lead system just as much as you could kind of exploit some of these, you know, again, do the bare minimum, just LED lighting upgrades.
Everything.
Yeah, I don't even see LED as being on the tax.
Agreed.
Years ago, I changed every light bulb in the house.
Well, this meant for, you know, for all your signage, for, you know, for everything exterior, for everything.
can we exclude the low hanging fruit from the list of
Absolutely.
earnable points on the lead program and use what's left?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you would have an energy assessor go in and identify the key.
What are your drivers?
Yeah, I mean, the ones that are gonna best have the greatest impact, you know, positive impact on the community. You know, these are the 4 things that you need to do to earn this, the 8 things you need to do to earn this.
There are people that do that. Are you one of those people?
I could do it, but I mean, I know.
I guess the question is, somebody that does it commercially, what do they charge to do that?
Oh, well, I mean,
$100,
actually, bringing up FPL is a good point, because they do that free of charge.
Right. Talk about.
They'll do an audit, yeah.
Okay, that's the energy audit, has nothing to do with.
Yeah, that doesn't apply to knocking the building down and start.
No, it covers one portion of.
Correct.
Yeah.
Entire agenda.
Correct. The point is that I could see our fee structure is fairly low for building permits. I put in a solar system, $74 permit fee. That's it. I don't care if I put in 20 kW, 74 bucks. That, let's say, now we did have a home inspection done, and I think it was $85 for the roof and the wind load business that's done.
Wind mitigation.
Wind mitigation, I think that cost us $85. In other words, if you could get somebody to come in for like 85 bucks, the city had to discuss whether they would want. In other words, you pay for your permit, part of the permit fee covers the cost of somebody coming out and doing that assessment.
Could be that, or it could be that we'll just stick with the $85, that someone come out and identify the key, you know, measures that you need to do. If you're gonna sign up to do 4 of them, the city will cover half the cost. If you're gonna sign up to do 8 of them, then they'll cover the whole cost.
Wait, you're talking energy, and
Well, no,
the 4 or the 8 cover all, you know, a variety
Yeah,
of.
I'm talking about trying to cover all. In other words, there might be a site, I think what's being said is, it's got a real problem with too much paving. Somebody comes in and says, it would really help if you got rid of this paving, put in swales. And so they come up kind of with some suggestions or a list. And actually, that could work as an incentive. If somebody just wants to paint the building and be done with it, they're not going to care anyway. If they want to get involved, you can say, okay, there's this inspection and assessment, whatever you want to call it, it's going to cost. But if you do X, in other words, if you do level 2 or 3 or something like that, the city will cover this percentage of
Cost for
that $85 cost.
for the
It's very
inspection.
low.
In other words, if you go in whole hog, we say, we're happy.
I think more comprehensively, you're talking about a 4-point inspection, internal to the house where they check the plumbing and the electric and everything else, which it complements the wind mitigation inspection.
Yeah, the wind mitigation was just, I was
Yeah,
trying to
I
get
know.
an idea, what's it cost to get somebody to come out and crawl around the house?
An enhanced 4-point is where they check the electric and you could check what kind of consumption systems you have, you could check the water and see what kind of water saving systems you have. That's,
So,
But if I might, if we look back at the goal, we're talking about, you know, development and redevelopment on the west frontage. of A1A, and that's, I mean, that's not houses, and that's not, and generally, that's not, okay, for example, I'm working on something now having to do with that old Cove restaurant, and, you know, if that goes the way we think it might go, you know, an energy assessment and, you know, and
That
looking
building
at.
needs to be torn down.
Yeah, looking at how much light's coming through the windows.
But that needs to be bulldozed.
No, but that's not what's gonna happen. That's not what's gonna happen.
this, it might.
No, but,
I mean, you want this to match reality.
That's
but
the
yes,
purpose.
yes, in realistic terms, the buyer, the prospective buyer for that property, they're probably not talking about knocking the whole building down. But the roof will come off, the windows will all get replaced, and all of the, you know, and then maybe it goes up like 4 courses block from where it is now. So it gets, you know, maybe 3.5 feet higher, okay? But I mean, it seems like we're talking about things that have to do
But let me
with
give
like
you an-
sealing up the current windows on your house and, you know, and doing, and, you know, replacing
Let's use
those
that
with
site as
more
an ex-
efficient and stuff like that. And I think the redevelopment, I think that's not how it works. I think buildings either get knocked down and rebuilt, or some of the walls some of the block walls get left and, you know, and then they're,
They're retrofitted.
yes.
So let's talk about that site. That site's a really key site, and there's a lot of things that could happen on that site. Number one, that site's very low. And so that site is a beautiful candidate for putting something on stilts. So you could wrap a building around that existing building, build over the parking lot, rip out some of that parking, or that pavement, put in stormwater systems, cut in under drains, create a swell system around it, do rain gardens on the edges, and build that puppy up by going in and using these incentives. So you could have that restaurant on the ground floor, you could have parking, and then you could have upper stories where you've got either offices and residents or residents. Then you come in with a rain garden up top, green roofs, brew roofs, whatever you want to do, put a restaurant up there. You've got a cool project, and we've got a project that is going to help the environment much more than that site does, and contributes economically to the city. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that something like this contemplates, and that site is a really good example, good piece to work with, if you use your imagination by having some incentives.
I just, what caused me to speak up a minute ago is I feel like that we're kind of, you know, like our conversation's kind of diverting from, you know, from what that goal is. We're talking about, you know, getting energy assessments.
And you're
kind of
absolutely
like you
right.
get on your house for free from the power company and stuff like that.
And you're absolutely right. So if those folks that buy it, they just want to come in, paint it up, shore it up, fix it up, leave everything the way the way that it is, they're just, you know, they just would do it within the code.
I feel 2 conversations going on.
Yeah.
One is about how to do this, and one is about how to make it financially feasible that somebody would actually want to do this.
And the way to make it financially feasible is to allow them to go up and to add the units.
Well,
And that's the only thing that's going to make it
I
feasible.
understand that from a conceptual point of view, but from an initial capital investment and a return on investment, I don't know what these things costed to make that building that you just described. I don't know what that initial investment would be. And I don't know that a bank would secure it. I just don't know. I think those are the 2 conversations. We can document this today, and it wouldn't be a problem, but I just don't know if it'll have any effect on our community. For me, I can't see it. I'm having a real struggle with putting those 2 things together. The business side versus the environmental side. I'm having a real difficult time with that. But that's just me. I might be totally
No,
off.
I agree. I worry that we're gonna end up with, 2 new tall condominiums that are greener than they would have been otherwise. But I'm not sure that we're really encouraging sustainable redevelopment throughout the city. I think that, these are all great ideas, but when we're just talking about height, I don't know, we're not gonna become some hub of sustainable development as a result of this.
I think we came to a
But
place where
but
by
the
adding
goal-
height, we're assuming that they have greater revenue, therefore there's an incentive to put this in. And I know I'm struggling with, if it was me buying that building, would I want to go through all that and hopefully get a return that's going to at least pay for that? I just,
But I think this thing that we're working on here in this committee, I think it really is kind of a subset of what you're talking about. It really is just the property that fronts the west
Yeah,
side of
this is-
A1A.
that's
And
exactly
so
right.
that's a part of, making Satellite Beach a hub of sustainable development, but it's
It's a start. That's-
yeah, I
it's
don't
just
think
a
it
start.
can be, I don't think it can be expected to be all of that, because it's really only one strip of land.
Because we're shifting density from South Patrick to the A1A corridor.
Right.
I know
Yes.
that's the goal, but I think
As an incentive to create better opportunities for redevelopment of these bad sites. Because otherwise, these sites are just gonna sit there and be negative contributors. So, the idea is to, if we get something and they get something. And what we hopefully will get are the inclusion of sustainable sites, sustainable buildings, and, better stormwater, more landscaping, better flood attenuation, as well as, better buildings
I
and low
totally agree
impact.
with that. I just don't know what the business case is. That's the only thing I'm struggling with.
Okay, can I?
Jazzy?
interject for a minute? So, I think we have diverged a little bit from what we were, diverted a little bit from what we were talking about too. I mean, and for good reason, but I think what we need to do is simplify this, because if those of us who've been sitting here working on this can't make heads or tails of this, there's no way people are gonna vote on this.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
This was just, we've been talking about it, it's been in that spreadsheet form, we've gone through it a couple of times. Now it's kind of in a different format. We're still at 10,000 feet, we're coming down.
I'm not criticizing,
Yeah.
like,
No, it's
and that
okay.
wasn't really like my point,
Yeah,
that was
it's
kind
okay.
of my like
No, that's just a
intro.
critique. That's not a critique.
Yeah, I mean, because I believe in this project and I really want it to work. I would really hate for this to be a waste of our time because people don't vote on it. So I think that coming up with a way to simplify this really makes a lot of sense. I kind of like the idea of going off of the lead point system, because we're not reinventing the wheel, which means that we are making it
Something
more
that
simple.
folks have heard of also.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem so shady, like it's not gonna be like, oh, well, they came up with this weird point system and nobody knows what that is.
The judgment out of that.
Yeah, so if we can say, and I don't know the system, so I'm just gonna throw this out there, and maybe the number is crazy, but maybe we can say, like, base level category 1 is 49 points on the lead scale, and, level 2 is 70, like whatever
Sure.
it is. And then we don't have to go through and eliminate the fruit if we make sure that it's still enough that no matter what, if they pick all the low-hanging fruit and things that don't have anything to do with Florida, we're still accomplishing something. Two things. One would be encouraging people to actually come here and develop, because that's key to the sustainability of the city, is having actual businesses want to come here and build, and right now they can't do that. And then also making sure that one way or another, they're improving that land. Maybe not as much as we want them to, but any step in the right direction is progress.
Mhm.
Well, towards that end, if we enlisted the two Dillons, I presume they fairly quickly could go through the lead or whatever else they know, and if there's stuff there that's, I'll call it silly, in other words,
Inapplicable or just
well,
too easy.
yeah, LED lighting, you'd say,
Not-
well,
not
people
big
ought to do
enough.
that, and took the material and said, this is material that applies in a realistic sense to the city of Satellite Beach, as far as our goal is. And then, my guess is probably they and staff could come up with a way break that up into like these categories. And obviously, if somebody said, I will get the certification, then you say, fine, you've just, won the brass ring and you're on.
But what do you get for that? I mean, is that what we're saying, 55 feet and
That's what
15
you
additional
get. We
units
have
as
these
lead?
1, 2, 3 business, I think everybody tend to acquiesce to the idea that if somebody got the certificate, said it's lead, okay, they just won
The brass ring.
Right, but
the prize.
if somebody does 50% of that.
50%,
then they
that's what
still
I'm
get-
saying, that you would get, in other words, those would be the levels 2 and 3.
Okay,
Type
we're on
thing.
we're on the
For
same
level
page, I'm just
two.
trying to understand what you're saying, but I
So-
completely agree, it's the simplest way to do it.
So if
But
somebody,
financially is questionable.
right, and that's kind of where I'm
But that could be
thinking.
researched,
Um,
I mean, all this has research.
It is, and that's, that's
Because
where I
lead-
come in,
lead
so.
has the categories.
It
And
does.
so, if there's a category, you say, it really doesn't matter here, you just ignore it, you take those items in their checklist that are applicable and important, and kind of break them somehow or other into the categories, and again, this idea of take one from each of 2, 3, 4, 5 categories, and if you get a certain, somehow or other,
You get
get
55.
Dylan,
and-
wouldn't it be possible to go through and just redline all the things that really, to put it in really simple terms, that really shouldn't count so much? And,
Get 2 points instead of 20 points.
I think the Florida Solar Energy Center has already done a lot of stuff like that. And I'm not sure, I mean, maybe not the HERS system, but they research building design or building science for the Florida climate, and they at one time they had this thing called the Building Design Assistance Center, where they would offer this design service to people. But maybe LEED is the right way to go too, but we need to, I wanted to ask you a question about LEED. Does it change by region, or is it just?
Yeah, no, it's,
So there's LEED for hot and humid climates, and there's LEED for.
it's also
regions.
with the innovation and design category, I think there's eight total categories and so, and they have.
So maybe it is, maybe, but LEED doesn't address land and things like that, does it? Or like stormwater, or is that something?
And low
It
impact
should,
design, it
yeah,
does,
it should.
yes, it
Energy and
absolutely does.
environmental issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely does. So, and that's where,
Well, we
like-
might want to put more emphasis on stormwater, because that's, a big problem for the city now, and.
That's where number 2 came in. That's where number 2 came in. That's minimum. That's like critical. So if you're gonna, to get anything, you gotta do
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
So
that makes
could
sense.
we recommend that folks who are more in the know about the LEED system go back and take a look at these categories with LEED and then break that up into a point system somehow, 50%, 75, as you guys were already saying, so that whoever gets to the top part of LEED automatically gets the 55 feet, 15 extra units.
So,
Is that a concept that people like, or?
well,
Because I don't think we're gonna solve, we don't
that's
have
what,
enough
that's
tools
what I've
to
been
resolve
thinking
this.
about for the
gonna have
last
to come
half
back.
an hour or more.
So-
That's what we need to do, so that what we base this on is not only, something that we're, as, some more and some less knowledgeable, residents, and volunteers able to apply it, but that the voters are able to recognize it as, and potential, property buyers and builders and whatnot, able to recognize it as something that's, well, let's just say not hokey, something that's already accepted around the country and,
Generally accepted standards.
yeah,
And less
yeah.
subjectivity involved.
Maybe it's just, maybe it's not possible to, to get somebody to go through that strictly on a voluntary basis, because it might just be too big of a job, to go through and,
well, that's
cherry pick
that's
those
what my
things.
role is to, create this, this system and help us work through to rewrite the code and create something that everybody's comfortable with and that, that is able to go through the boards and council and then be considered and understood by the voters. And that's going to be critical, because if the voters don't pass it, then we're dead in the water, and we're going to be like we are now for, for another 10, 20 years, whatever it is. So, so what I'm going to suggest to you is that I've heard what everybody has said, and I would welcome any of you to email me with any of your thoughts. If there's something that's not here, I was hoping to get some, after we talked the last time, I think you were going to send me some additions, because all of these are from LEED, and I've looked at other programs around the country, and I've worked with the Solar Energy Center for and one of my best friends works there, and she can come in and talk to us anytime. But the point is that I think the simpler we keep it, the better. Yeah. And so what I'd like to suggest is that we take the LEED as its own category, and we go back to kind of that tier thing, but keep it simple. So if you do LEED, you get the brass ring.
The 55.
Yeah, but you can also get to 55 and 15 by doing other things. And those other things would be top priority things. So if you didn't get all the way to LEED or invoke a LEED certification program, but you do the key components, like the top few things in each of these categories would be...
Are these prioritized in the categories?
From my perspective, they were. And it got to like things that just, were the low-hanging fruit down in the bottom. So to me, my first tiers were these top things. If you look at what's in these categories, they're important, expensive items. So if we prioritize them and go back to kind of that tier approach that was laid out in some of the prior spreadsheets, then you could also get to not only the 45, but you could get to 55. You could get to a maximum of 25 units to the acre, or X amount of units from the Jelly Bean Bowl. I think that may work better than a per acre basis. So I think what I failed to do was to lay it out better for you. So if you really take a look at things in the list and not just go, there are some things here that were put in the tier system. You had to do like 15 of them in order to get something.
Yeah, when you're down to 4,
well, these, this was just trying to start some conversation.
Sure.
And so I'll go back to the drawing board and kind of break it out again. I'll talk to Courtney and say that everybody really liked, going to kind of breaking out the system.
Well, the thing is, if you base it on LEED, or very heavily on LEED, that is a selling point for the voters too. That isn't that we sat here,
right,
the ignorant leading the blind.
It's a generally accepted source.
Yeah,
Right.
that it has legitimacy.
As opposed to we made it up.
Yeah, and then we can go and saying that we called stuff that, and I would say though that if we only had 3 tiers, that is there.
Maybe we only have 2 tiers. I mean, it might just be 2 tiers.
Well,
if we're going to take some of the low-hanging fruit off.
No, I'm counting. You got the one. You're not going to do anything. You just have to work by the code. And then I do like having 2 levels above that.
Yeah. Okay, that tier
now,
system.
The question then becomes: is that top level certified or something kind of, because to give somebody a choice of doing part of it or all of it,
They're gonna do part,
why do you do all of it?
right?
Unless it's just for your own grandizement or
Was
whatever.
it not, you guys were talking a little while ago about lead equivalent, and maybe I misunderstood, but I kind of took that to mean that, well, you know, you've done everything on this building that would qualify you for a lead certification, but you just don't go the last step and pay the big fat fee and everything to get the certificate.
Yeah,
Did I understand that right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that was,
Well, I think that we ought to,
That big a fee.
yeah.
Oh.
It's- Or you could do another kind of similar system, whether it's US Green Building Council or Green Building Coalition or, you know, some of those, but they have the same, a lot of the same.
I think you put the word
components.
green in anything, and you have too many voters that stop at that word and just check no.
why not, for the top
Green.
one, if we listed, okay, you mentioned several. There's LEED, which I think almost everybody knows.
Right.
There's Green Building Council, probably one or two others. If they're roughly equivalent,
They're the same.
then why not just cite, if you do one of these,
I'm all in favor of that.
you're number 3,
Because
you just
we,
won.
yeah,
And we're out, just show us a certificate.
And that's the top one.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
And
the
there's no
trick is to
equivalent,
come
no
with,
subjectivity, it's
Yeah.
just, it's there.
Yeah,
and
no,
the trick is to come up with that, well, you didn't quite make the goal,
So it's below.
what is it, it's the one-pointer in football or something, you know, the whatever.
So we do, oh, I'm sorry.
In other words, the top is a certification from some program. The intermediate somehow is cobbled together from that set of material. You just didn't do it all, but you did the important parts.
and I apologize because I should have started off, we kind of jumped ahead by saying that we wanted to prioritize and come up with what that number system would be. So I think if I'd have laid that out better for you all, or if I'd have kept us kind of in the, you know, in a path, and we.
Well, we kind of jumped
we
it a little
jumped
bit.
ahead,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't really
I kinda
get to
felt
do
that.
that. You know, this might have been understood a little better, but I think I get what you're all looking for, and I think that we can go back and pull out the certification programs, and that gets you the gold medal, and then come up with another 2 or 3 levels of priorities that from the top level of priority, you don't have to do as many. The next level, you do more. The bottom level, you do a whole bunch more. And,
But you still
Okay.
get to pick and choose which one you
Yeah.
want to do.
yeah,
I like that.
Okay, so, should we have a motion for, that we accept the premise, with changes that are going to make, number 4, I think, number 4, so to speak, no, number 3, I think.
3.
Make number 3, you earning
It'll
either
split.
LEED certification or one of the others that you've mentioned that are, you know, essentially the same thing, and tiers 3 and 2, some percentage of that, some percentage, lesser percentages of that are as yet to be defined based on the, you know, the research that we get on those earnable points within the
I
program.
got the feeling we're in consensus with basically we start with programs, if you get it, you've got it, and then there's something in between, whether it's one level, I'm happy with one level, if it's 2 levels, whatever, you know, works
And
out.
is a consensus
But
vote all we
basing it-
need on those
But
things?
the idea of
yeah,
basing
I'm just
it
trying to get consensus.
on the points that these programs provide is some idea of you know, what their value is, not necessarily a point system.
Let me understand though, because I've heard differences. I want to make sure that you use LEED, you're there. But can you get there if you don't use LEED?
I think I'd say no.
I would say no. I'd say no.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's.
And I'm not judging it, I'm making sure I understand what we're saying.
That says,
I want a consensus.
I think that would make the voters feel comfortable that
Yeah.
if somebody's going for
Because
this,
then the
they
environment is
have
involved.
worked.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
isn't
there's
a
no,
game.
We
right,
stay true to the goal.
there's no
And it
game.
incentivizes the people that want that.
Hey, listen, I started out there months ago, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's that intermediate where the
That's
people
gonna be
don't
where
want to go
that's the
that
tricky
far. It's
part.
going to take some finesse, I think.
And that's the Chinese menu, the one from column A and two from column B, you know, that you can.
But you want to
earn.
keep it simple.
It has to be simple.
Well, let me jump in real quick. So I'm kind of trying to come up to speed on everything that's going on. But say I'm a business owner and I'm going to go buy the New York piece, right? And so I say, well, how can I make the most money out of it? So to make money on it, you're saying that I'm going to want to go up so I could have larger space. Maybe I want to put a restaurant at the top, I can make more money. So what's the incentive here is, right now I could only go to like 35 feet, right?
That's right.
Say I want to go up higher than that. And I tell myself, I have some advisors and they say, yeah, you can make, that's a good investment to go ahead and do that. And so to be able to do that, then this program kicks in where I say, I go through this and say, well, I need to become LEED certified to be able to go above the 35.
No, to go all the way to 55, to get to the max.
To get to the max.
But it still goes back to the business case. How much is that investment in order to get more space from a purely business perspective?
Well, here's a good way to look at that. I
Even if
think.
it's a wash, some people will buy into it, but they're not going to lose money.
On your question, here's a good way to look at
It's on a
that.
case-by-case basis.
The restaurant doesn't go on the second or third floor.
No.
No, because you have people that have knee problems and stuff that go out to dinner too. And the only way to get them up there is with an elevator or an escalator or something like that. So the restaurant doesn't go on the second floor. The restaurant goes on the first floor. I mean, we can say the restaurant goes on the second floor if we want, but it's not gonna happen. What goes on the upper floors are maybe office space or, apartments. And on these size properties that we're generally talking about, you're talking about small apartments. And the rent on those is, I don't know, I haven't rented an apartment in a long time, but I mean, a couple thousand a month, something like that, or less. Less, so, I mean, so the revenues on that, it's not big. It's not big. I mean, so looking at what we're doing here and saying, oh, well, somebody's gonna make all their money back in 5 years. No, it's not gonna happen like that.
It's on a case-by-case.
I mean, there has to be, there will still have to be some interest on the part of the person who's developing that property. There has to be some interest on them, on their part in sustainable building, or they won't do.
And that's what we had at DeSoto and A1A, but apparently the financing didn't work, okay? So the banks didn't agree. The lenders didn't agree.
Exactly.
But the point is, if you use LEED or Green Building Council or something, there's LEED buildings and other stuff all over the country, so it must appeal to developers, or you wouldn't have any.
Oh, I'm not saying that's.
No, but I'm saying that's
generally strictly on.
And it's required, John, in a lot of big cities, it's required.
And I'm not saying I'm against sustainable business, I'm all for sustainable business, but this is the private investor meeting, I think we're just trying to avoid someone coming in here and doing a poor job of building a new building that's not gonna last the test of time, just so they can make a quick buck and sell it, thinking it more long-term. I mean, just trying to reconcile the, no, I know, I'm just saying the return on the investment is huge for going to these, but it's a long term. The upfront costs are big.
I know it's long-term, that's not the issue. I'm looking more of a cash flow basis. If you borrow $100,000, it may cost you $1,000 a month to pay that back. And you're going to get $1,000 a month in increased revenue to offset that, never mind the rest of the project. That's all I'm saying.
By year 3, significant.
It's a straight line. Well, yeah, you're talking about revenue growing over time. That's part of the business case,
That-
no
absolutely.
question, no question.
So, and that's gonna be on a case by
I
case
wasn't,
basis.
I didn't really mean to sound negative about it, I just don't,
No.
I'm just having a hard time seeing the case.
Well, you know, it really is on a case-by-case basis, and when you look at, I'm gonna say $200 a square to build it, and you're probably gonna be renting it or, leasing it at,
Currently on A1A, the retail space is going like from 14 to maybe 18 or 20 in a
a square
freestanding
foot.
building.
Yeah, a square foot.
Yeah.
So, you know, in order to make that money.
Not counting the other costs like taxes and insurance
Sure.
and stuff like that.
Sure.
And if they do residential, then we improve, whatchamacallit, affordable housing.
Yes.
And they wouldn't have to have as much parking, correct?
Yes, we're gonna reduce the parking.
But I mean, for like if it was mixed use where it's a restaurant on the bottom and there's maybe 4 apartments upstairs.
You're absolutely right, there'll be
They
shared parking.
require less parking if they have
Mhm.
residential on top than if they have
That's right.
offices.
Mm-hmm, yeah, because it'll be shared parking, because there'll be, you know, alternate times.
And as far as the cost, my experience trying to find housing for a family is that even the little bitty duplexes, I don't know how many square feet, but not very big, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, you start at $850 and move up real fast.
On
The
rent.
dumps,
Yeah.
the dumps are
Very
there
expensive.
on north of Sherwood for $1,000 a month.
You were renting, how much were you paying over there, do you mind repeating?
900,
Okay, that's why his number is right in line with.
Mhm.
yeah. But I mean, you couldn't even really find that elsewhere in
No,
Saturday
yeah.
for what we have.
1,500,
Places weren't
for what you
probably
had, it'd be about
paying or
15,
anything like that.
1,600 a month.
Yeah, so that's kind of where if somebody gets 6 units, that's what, 9,000 a month.
So let me do 2 things. One, let me kind of address Steve, right? I don't think you really got an answer to the question. I think, to sum it up really quickly, it's a quid pro quo. We're asking you to do a whole lot more to that site than you might normally be inclined to do. And in return, we're going to give you the ability to increase your rate of return by allowing you to go up, increase your leasable space, whether that's in office space or residential space. And so that's where, you know, hopefully there's some future balance that you're going to get in that rate of return, and we get an improved environment, and we get economic sustainability. The devil is always in the details. So I think if I can just kind of bring it back together, I understand we want the premise is basically what we've got here, with the exception that the only way you're gonna get to 55 and whatever the maximum unit number is by getting LEED or equivalent certifications. Now, you could get to 54, you get to 53, you can, you know, by earning it in some way. And I'm gonna go back to my computer, and I'm gonna identify what the priority items are. So all of you around the table can take a look at these. And like I said, I pulled from a lot of the different programs.
But you left some out. You
yes.
chose what you thought was most applicable?
Most applicable and doable here,
Right, okay.
you know, feasible to be done, and that would be offset by some of the costs associated with going up and having more units. So I just pulled things that, you know, that I thought would be workable. If Dylan wants, you know, I mean, if you've got some other things, if anybody has some other things that you find are important, I'll go back into my lead stuff and I'll, you know, pull out other things that, if there's other things there that I think, you know, are really usable in our current redevelopment and development scenario. Because remember, most everything along A1A is developed, and there's very few undeveloped properties. I mean, you've got the bowling alley and the piece behind it. You've got the piece down by CrossFit. You've got the piece down by, the old Phoenix.
Harwood, and
Down across from Pelican Beach Park.
Yeah, and the Peg Legs. It's the city, so that's
and then
a different ballgame.
the old Dairy Queen.
Yeah, and that's undeveloped. That's why it's sitting there.
The
Basically.
It's, well, the
Basically.
DFW owns it.
Why don't we come back then and look over that, the interim, not the top tier, because we agree top tier, but the interim one?
Well, I was gonna ask you, this was gonna be the last meeting, but I think, I mean, I for one wanna have another one if y'all are willing and wanting to, continue. I'm certainly willing to continue. I would say, let's pull out our calendars. And, Tuesdays seems to have, worked out. If you want, we can come back. We've got to do this fairly quickly, and that's one of the reasons this was going to be the last one, because if we're going to get the ordinance done, and I'm going to start putting this in ordinance form, because we've got to get the ordinance in front of P&Z and council in order to get council's blessing to get something on the ballot.
But how much time do you need to prioritize? Because I don't see that as a trivial thing, that's substantive work to prioritize some of these things.
It's not trivial, but it's not going to take that long. I mean, I've got, and if you, like I said, if you look at the first few things in here, and see, I'm trying to keep it simple in terms of what we have to do in getting this started. So,
I'm sorry.
So you just tell us how much time you need to put it together, and that's where we start.
You still want us to give you inputs on these things?
I would absolutely want your input, but I also want you, when you look at this, to think about the fact that they're kind of in, in heavy, lighter, little, as you go down this list.
Well, I'm not trying to get on a big tangent here, but I just feel like it'd be doing a bit of a disservice to the final investors here if you just think, number one, on the premise to renovate a building and not the site, willing to stay at 35 feet. I just don't see a lot of, we keep talking about the maximum to 55. I don't think we talk a lot about the minimum, and I think a lot of the low-hanging fruit, to go to LED lighting, I think even to stay at 35 feet, I mean, I just think any kind of renovation to a building, that that low-hanging fruit should be mandatory. I mean, I think.
You put in a new roof, you have to put more screws. It's the same thing.
I agree.
Yeah, there's some things like LED light, not necessarily in the sign, but space illumination, whatever you call it.
And
Any
some
kind
of
of
that's-
renovation, you should have to do some kind of.
And some of that's already in the building
conservation,
code. Some of that's already in our building code, in the Florida building code that we've adopted. So,
Is that different though? I mean, is that a different,
Well, actually, we had talked about, when we were talking about things like swales and parking and stuff, we talked about possibly changing some of the.
We're going to, but first of all, that's next, okay? First of all, we're just trying to get this incentive program in place in order to get on the charter for November, because it deals with charter issues. Because we've got an election coming up, so we've got CCCL done, this was the next step, and then the whole broad code I'm working on.
The point is that premise, number one, is an unknown at this point then, which is okay, but it's the starting point, it's the baseline.
Right,
I think what number one is saying is simply if you don't do anything special,
You don't get anything.
anything special.
Exactly. That's
you
all it
can
is.
just about take that one off.
I know, and that's really all, we just wanted to.
I mean, you can get bogged down over number one.
Exactly, it's just, if you're gonna let's stick on the pig, you just follow the code and we don't worry about you. We can't do anything about you, we can't force you to do anything else. We can't make you bring up the site, we can't make you bring up the building. If you are just gonna go in there and paint that building and clean that kitchen and, put in new chairs and do all that kind of stuff, just go do it. And So
It's really number 2 that we're,
it's number 2, and, you know,
there.
Well, I think what we've been discussing really is 2, 3, and 4. I think, that's what we've been really talking about, is the gold standard.
yeah, I think we've added one. I mean, the added one is, you know, the top of the line, you do the lead, you're 55, you're out of here.
Yes.
But I think that you're gonna be able to go from 45 to 54, and with other components.
So if you go to, let's talk about units in a minute. Is there a minimum size unit that you can build? Like, can you build like a 300 square foot apartment?
In the city, no.
That's a great question. I was
Yeah,
thinking
no,
about
the
that.
minimums are set in the zoning.
New Jersey,
The
you got
RM3.
400
Is that, does that need to be changed?
We will probably have to, address that across the board.
The smallest unit sitting right now, as I recall, is 800 square feet.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say either
So
750 or
one
800.
bedroom apartment, the smallest you can build it is 800 square
I
feet?
believe I think it's the Sea Villas there,
So has anybody done the math on that to see,
In the
are you even
RM3,
gonna be able to get to
and see in the,
that many units?
Well, and I was thinking about that a little while ago too, because even questions of like what the setbacks are and everything like that come into play, because the footprint, you know, if you're as tall as you're allowed to be and you have as many floors in there as that can accommodate, you know, then the square footage of each floor versus the minimum allowable in a given unit, there are other constraints that will come into play here that we haven't really.
it will be less
Absolutely.
constraining as the lot gets bigger.
Yes,
That's correct.
yes.
and that was one of the incentives. If you aggregate, then you would get more.
Yeah.
So back to the square footage, right now, the RM3, the minimum is 1,100, I think I read.
Even for a multifamily.
It was big.
Yeah, that was-
And the minimum for single family was 1,850. So
What
this was,
about duplex? Or, what is it? R5 or something, you start to get into duplex.
yeah, I don't have the R5 with me, I just printed off the R3 and the commercial.
Because I don't believe.
I'm sorry,
these
this
units
one-
down here are out of code.
Which ones?
On Cassia.
Oh.
I'm saying they're probably
The way the rents are
600
going, if
square.
you want to rent something affordable, it's probably going to be
Yeah,
small.
so we've talked about, that's one of the things we're gonna have to address throughout the code, but I think even in this new code, because what we're gonna have to create is a new kind of mixed-use district code that encompasses the incentives and what the process is gonna be and how it's gonna be implemented. So those kinds of things, and you know, we might not get into those specifics, you know, with y'all, but they'll be dealt with as we get, you know, further into the ordinance.
I can see where, you know, somebody
Oh, I
might
know.
want a large number of small rental units, but that somebody else might want to live over their own business.
Right.
Like 3,500 square feet.
Well, and Kathy has, what, 2,000 square feet on the top?
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, I think it's about 2. So,
Yeah, upstairs, the apartment,
and that rent is like that.
yeah.
I mean, just, boom.
So are we assuming that there's a demand for all these apartments that?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge demand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everywhere.
All
Yeah,
over the-
when they
All
shut
over the
down
county.
27 acres north of Shearwater, I don't know how many families.
A lot
It was
of us.
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
number.
Yeah.
But those things
It was
tend
like
to settle down
140
over time, and I
units
just
in there,
didn't know what the
each-
market's like.
Each unit had to,
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just go back to what y'all were talking about. Just because you get to 55 and 50 units, I'm making it up, doesn't mean you're gonna be able to build that. But it gives you an opportunity so that you can at least look at doing something that would be financially feasible. And, you know, that's part of why the Peg Lakes piece didn't work. That's why Dave Allison's piece, he wasn't able to do anything. So we've got people that are out there wanting to do stuff and wanting to fix up a lot of these old derelict sites. And I don't mean that judgmentally, but they're just becoming derelict and negatively contributing. But they can't because our current code precludes them, and the cost of doing what the right thing is to be done is prohibitive. So that's why they just end up putting lipstick on the pig. And so I appreciate, you know, working through all this, that, you know, making sausage is not pretty, and, you know, making laws is not pretty, but we'll get there, and I appreciate your diligence and your heads and your, you know, brains, and we did not come up with a date. I'm gonna say 2 weeks, the 24th. Mayor, what's your council date?
First and third. So 4 and 8.
Could we actually do Wednesday, the 25th?
I believe that's
Is that-
sustainability board.
That's the fourth
Sustainability board.
Wednesday is, I thought it was third Wednesday. Oh, their third Wednesday. And then the 26th, we have the workshop. Let's,
Monday the 30th? Which Monday, or Monday's out?
or Monday, May 1st.
Tuesday.
Because Tuesday, May 1st, because,
Why don't I have it in my calendar?
is that May
It's on
1st?
Thursday.
I don't know, but I think one of the requirements for sitting on that committee was that you're not, that during that time, you're not sitting on another one.
So,
Wasn't that right? Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite, I mean, the mayor's confirming it, so I think you and I, this may be our last meeting here.
in each category.
I can't imagine the council would get upset if you show up at one meeting and start, because your first meeting doesn't start until.
The 20, no, it's the 19th, it's next week,
I wanted to keep,
right? It's the 19th? I'm pretty sure
No,
it's
no, we're not coming.
Yeah, it's the 19th, I'm almost certain.
Oh, yeah, the 19th sounds right. I guess I didn't put it on my calendar yet.
I don't know, you better.
We're not exactly ready to go.
We can't, that's just existing. You come in, we can't make you do anything in that circumstance, legally. Unless you're hitting a certain point of gutting and roofs and things like that, if you're staying under a certain percentage, based on our code, we can't make you bring everything up.
It's
Some
like
cities-
50%.
Oh, I just meant the low hanging fruit. I just don't want to end up with a whole bunch of 35-foot lipstick picks.
That's right, and
That's exactly
that's
right.
what we
35
have.
foot tall.
And unfortunately, what?
No, we don't have 35 feet. That's
No, we
how
don't, they're
big it is.
small.
Sounds like a movie,
15
horror movie
feet.
from the 50s.
Yeah, 15 feet, you know, so, yeah, so that's a really good point. I mean, that's a really good point. They, you know, but that's the code right now, so we can't really make them, do anything if they're just doing what they can do under the code.
I'm inclined to agree with Dylan 100%,
Well,
I mean, for what it's
I do
worth,
too,
but
but-
I just think that's a different form.
It's a whole, well,
So we change the code.
and we're gonna work on that
We,
next.
citizens.
Obviously,
When it-
for this list, the low hanging fruit, I mean, the lowest of the lowest hanging fruit should be mandatory under the new code, which will be
Which
gone
is
over.
next.
Yeah, which will be gone over at a later time.
Which is next. There, we're gonna, you know, look at doing a lot of revamps. And,
Some cities trigger that based on how long the property's been vacant. You know, that if it's vacant for, you know, once one business closes, if it's vacant for some period of time before the next one moves in, then everything on that site has to be brought up to the current code.
yeah.
I don't know if we're ready for that here. I mean, we do, you know.
There are some things we are ready for and some things we're not. What?
Well, you have that right now here. If the gas station closes on a non-signalized intersection for more than 6 months,
It's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
So
So we have
some-
part
on
of
some
that.
types of,
Has
some
to be
types
a
of.
signalized right, and the gas station is a signalized intersection now in Satellite Beach. So the one that is on A1A that's not at a signalized, as long as he keeps pumping fuel, he's fine. If he stops, and I believe it's 6 months,
It's done.
and he wants to revamp,
It's a new ballgame.
it can't be.
So, and it's not something that, you know, as you just said, you know, the citizens will change. We're already there, because we've identified that in the sustainability plan, we've identified that in the principles and practices report that I did. And so, you know, we're already on that path. It's just we gotta do things, you know, kind of in sequence. Plus, some of these things are in the Florida Building Code that we've adopted.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we can make additions and modifications to that, and that has to be a whole different, that's a whole different process. So I think we're all in agreement that yes, we want to do that, but right now we can't. We gotta stay focused on this picture.
So Tuesday?
That's our day. What was the day?
Tuesday first, you said?
Was it is May 1st okay with
Is it
everybody?
I can't make May 1st.
I'm sorry?
I will not be here for May 1st.
Can you wanna, I can meet with you before that, or, you know, you can
Sure, yeah,
call
my
me, or?
actually, my husband is lead accredited, so it'd probably be better for you to meet with him. He's a general contractor, so I might send him your way.
Are Mondays out?
No, I can do Mondays. It's just,
Can anybody else do, like, the 23rd?
I'm not
Is it-
here. I'm not here on
Monday
the
the
23rd.
Or the 30th?
I can do Monday the 30th, but I'm not here on the 23rd. And I know
Do you
Courtney's
have
not
any
here.
information whether this room's available then?
I wouldn't have that.
I'll find out.
But there's always a room, I mean, there's a conference, there's only
Yeah.
10,
It's
there's a
just a
conference
few of
room,
us,
there's
it's a handful.
Okay.
meeting hall, I mean, plenty of places to meet.
And listen, I want you all to know, I mean, any of you can call me, write me, send me your thoughts, positive, negative, whatever, because, you know, this is a team, I want you to know, this is a team effort. When I reached out, I only got a couple of you that, you know, wanted to meet that time to get some of those priorities that we want to build into the code, so I'm open for that anytime, and hope that, that we can, you know, continue to have those conversations. So what did you pick, May 30th? I mean, April 30th or May 1st?
April 30th, right? Monday, April 30th?
Okay, I'm putting it in, and I'm gonna check with Julie, and I'll talk with Courtney tomorrow.
Again, 6:30.
6,
Now, did we, you know, forgive me for backing up here, but, I mean, and I'm not taking issue with the date. Did we agree that that the next meeting, that when we come back, we're talking about, the premise, and that the gold standard is, you earn one of those certifications, and the other two are, percentages, or, you know, some part of that, reaching some portion of that certification minus the low-hanging fruit, or that plus other things that you're gonna come up with in the meantime that get added to those? Because we kind of talked about it two ways,
Well,
really.
I thought we agreed that we were gonna talk about the incentives, the prioritized, or weighted incentives for reaching premise number 2, that we've already agreed to number 3.
Now, I think his
No.
question is, are we going to work off of?
Yeah, we're gonna work off an
lists that are on
established
the
program
certifications or-
completely
Oh,
or not.
Okay.
the established programs are gonna be my understanding is the established programs, where you're
That's
gonna get a
required for the
certificate.
total, you get everything.
Right, and then we're gonna take most of this list, and I'm gonna go back into LEAD and some of the other programs that I used to call all of this from, and see what is applicable, what's not applicable, and create kind of first priority and second priority to get you from 45 to 54.
But with the premise that stormwater is in all of those levels.
Oh, of course, of course, that's baseline,
That's- okay.
that's baseline, yeah. Is that, did
To
I get that right?
To the extent,
I think I might be the only person at this table that doesn't like that, but I just want to go on record.
to the
saying I
extent
don't
that
like
it's possible, I'd like to see that intermediate as a subset of the brass ring.
I mean, I
That's
completely agree with
what-
John, and I think that speaks to keeping it simple.
It is, to the extent that that's where these came from, a lot of these came from, and other planning principles and programs that we want to
Because
accomplish.
again, the more we can point to existing programs and say, we didn't make this up. We just, it's a brass
And-
ring, and this is the consolation
Right,
prize.
I mean, I didn't,
So
pull these
50%
off the
basically
wall.
divided. Yeah.
I think it's more like, LEED certified, we'll just call it percentage, right? It's 100%, not necessarily everything on this list is 100%. The next category down is 60%, and the category after, below that would be 30%.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Sure, that can be used as a rule of thumb to describe it to a person.
In prior, in prior.
Much more specific than
prioritized
that.
order,
Yeah.
The 30%, this is the kind of the lowest hanging fruit, but still covering the major.
So you don't want,
regional.
so we're
Not
not
just
gonna
the
use
low
this
hanging
list
fruit.
at
Right,
all.
but the
Well,
low
to
hanging
the extent
plus
they're
the
already
regional.
in lead.
Yes.
The 60% or,
Well,
the next,
If we do that, then we don't need a list.
still with the regional.
That's exactly my question, Rochelle. is that-
If we do.
I mean, are we working off a list, or are we working off a list plus some other things?
If
'Cause
you're just.
I foresee the next meeting ending up a lot like this if we don't decide this now.
I like let's use part of the existing list. Now, the thing is, let's say you had certification of LEED and Green Building Council.
They're the same.
They probably,
They're the same thing.
Yeah, it's-
USGBC.
okay, is there another,
Well, you've got the Florida Green Building, and you've got the Green Building Coalition, and they use a lot of the same things, but it's not exact.
are they
No.
as stringent, let's put it that way?
I would say no.
Well, I think just stick with one and.
Yeah.
Then we just,
Pick one.
to keep it.
Then everybody
keep it
knows.
simple.
Well,
Everything
then,
is
why
standard.
don't we stick with whatever's in LEED, except that if there's something outside that we say, this really is, let's say LEED, and I'm sure it's not the case, LEED doesn't address stormwater, then we would want to go outside and find something to be certified.
Like we were talking about earlier, LEED incorporates the regional priority points,
Okay.
and stormwater would be in that for the state.
Okay, I'm just
Starting at
not
first.
knowing, but in other words, if there's something.
But if there's something more than that,
It's
that doesn't
really,
go far enough, then
yeah,
I'm all for adding to
But,
that.
but frankly, I like that idea like white on rice. Because all you have to do, we don't have to do anything else. Come back, you can say
50%?
50% is this, and 60% is that, and 10% is this.
Well, we have to pick which ones get used for the 30 and the 50 and the 60. And I think there's, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm getting from Dylan that there's some work involved in that. It's not gonna.
There might be in other words, if there's some real low-hanging fruit that's we consider silly, let's say, you might pull that off and say, here's a truncated list of LEED, and that's the list you work from for the consolation purposes.
Or could we?
I think Dylan's just cringing on the inside at how little we know about.
No. Yeah.
Points, and so if you get, say, 100 points means LEED certification, 50% of that would be 50 points.
Mhm.
So there's no reason
You
to
gotta-
put
yeah.
it on the list.
Yeah, I completely agree.
You gotta be
Why-
careful with the
why
rating
don't you
systems. though,
Cultivate it.
Sometimes what will happen is, there's easy things to do, like, let's say you could just blow in a whole bunch of insulation, really cheap, and meet so many points, but really, you're not getting to where you want to be with maybe a white roof or some other.
I think that's what we've been referring to as low-hanging fruit.
Well, the point is you get fewer and fewer requirements. If you have a given set of low-hanging fruit, it suddenly becomes, if you have to do 100 things and 10 of them are low-hanging fruit, that's one thing. But if you
Yeah.
have to do 10 things and there's a list of 10,
Yeah.
that's easy.
We don't want to have that happen.
what you,
So I'm on the same train, so, and, you know, helping with that. Sorry, Devin. If you go for 100 points to get 55 and a bucket of units, 60 points, however you get there, within the lead system, you get, and I'm just making up numbers, you get X amount of feet and X amount of units. If you get 40 points, you get a little bit, you get, you know, only this many and this many. However you get to those 40, however you get to those 60, however you get to that 100, obviously by doing a whole lot, maybe it doesn't matter.
But
I'm
the
just
good thing
using-
that with the late fee grading system too is that a lot of those points are actually pretty
Substantial.
comparative to how much they cost.
Yeah, substantial.
So something that costs 1 point will cost 10% of something that will get you 10 points. And so low hanging fruit.
That's interesting, so it's a financial basis.
So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
upgrading your HVAC system, that's only one thing that you have to do, but that costs. That costs a lot of money, so.
You get a lot of points.
So you're getting a lot of points for that, so it's not exactly, I mean, but it, you know, based off a dollar figure.
Okay,
but
So
it's
that's
pretty
why
close.
I'm saying if you get to 40 points, then you've earned something. If you get to
Just
60
me saying,
points,
if you do 4 things that are worth 10 points each, that's kind of what, you're only doing 4 things, yeah, but if you do 40, one
Four
point
big
things,
expensive things.
I mean, the cost should really, to the,
That's one side, but the other side is, are those 4 things equal in sustainability benefit compared to 10 things that you left on the side? Is it these 10 equal this,
yes,
these
that's
4
what
on the
the
environment?
system brings, that's what the system brings together.
Okay,
You
and
want to
that-
scare them away, because the money, the more cost, if you want to get 100 points, and you can't afford it, you'll say, well, I'm going to go to this other property.
well,
that's the balance.
That's what I.
that, I guess, would be another benefit of going, if indeed the system's structured that way, then it's already taken care of to some degree of your concerns.
Exactly.
It's got the proper benefit cost ratios that they reflect that.
Environmentally and economically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this can all be changed too, so we can set the bar here and see how many takers we get, and if it doesn't, then we can lower it.
Right, we don't, yeah, and we don't, I mean, I think that's a brilliant idea. I wish we'd have latched onto that, you know, some time ago.
Where were you 8 weeks ago? I can't be here.
Sorry, yeah.
You know, because I
We're in
think,
Orlando, so again, I rarely get here on time for the.
and you might not have, you know, that might not have been what you meant, but that's where my brain went, is, hey, that's the simplest thing we can possibly do,
Well,
is, because of the way the rating system is, and the way you earn points,
well, if we're going
40,
to,
60, 100.
if we're going to a point system, you can actually back up then, and let's just assume that the certification's 100 points, just for ease of.
That's what I'm using it, yeah.
And then that's good for 55 feet and what was it, 25 additional units?
Some number, yeah.
Okay. So it's actually 20 additional feet, which actually says that now 5 points gets you 1 foot. And 25 units, 4 points gets you 1 unit.
Mhm.
And now you can let them scale it as they want, from one to the other. Maybe they want a 37-foot building. That fits their plan. Why not just do it that? That is so simple. It's just, you get a foot and a unit for so many points, and here's the list.
It's a way to do it. It's a lot more complicated, I think, to implement that way.
Why complicated to implement? They get the or they get the certification for the plan that says,
The nice thing about that is then you won't end up with somebody like in Mansford. Is it like called Mansford?
Mansard.
Roofs, just so they could get a maximum amount of, you know.
no,
I don't know how simple it is. There's some complexity to it.
Well, I mean, just kind of said, what was it, 5 points for foot, or was it?
Yeah, that was assuming 100
Well,
foot.
yeah, but I'm just saying, but how do you buy 5% of the HVAC system, just to kind of stick with that?
No, they have to
You know,
do, yeah, they
so-
get the points.
So
for
as the
HVAC.
property owner, it wouldn't be that simple necessarily.
Well, the height tends to be more discreet than that too, because, I mean, if you're adding feet and you're not adding enough feet to add a floor, then you're adding an architectural feature on the roof rather than
No,
level
if
square
you don't
feet.
have enough points, you can't do that architectural feature, you can't do.
No, that's what I mean, that's what I mean,
We
if
don't-
you
we don't
add,
want those, though.
if you earn points for some additional
Yeah, but-
feet, but it's not enough feet to add another floor,
Yeah,
then,
But you might want the
You might
points
want
to
it.
get the units.
that's,
Yeah.
where John's going is right, is you're gonna want more points to get more units, or you're gonna want more points to get more feet. And I mean, that's the whole idea, is the more you do, the more you get.
So we did take a look at both systems, just going 50% or 60 and the max, or a graded system. And
Because
we can talk
actually,
about
I
that in
could
3
see it
weeks.
too, that when you do it that way, if you say, talking purposes, another foot is 5 points and, or whatever it is, and another unit is 4 points. Somebody gets 30 points, maybe they don't want all the height, they've got enough room, and they say, I want more units. So then you've completely given them almost as much flexibility as you can. And I think it's easy to describe.
Could be. We'll think about
A
it.
unit's worth this many points, a foot's worth this many points, and here's the system, get the points you want, allocate them as you want. Thank you very much.
I like that.
There might be some value in that part of it, yeah, there might be
Because
some
if not,
value
you
in
might
it.
be forcing them to go high, or well, maybe not forcing.
Yeah, that's the thing, they'd say, well, I've got points on it, yeah, but that way, if somebody's into units, like Dave wanted 11 units, he couldn't get it, but, this way it might, but I don't think it was going for heights, so that would give him some.
Kind of language would be written in a way where it's either just layman's terms, like the 40%, 60%, 100%, or a unit breakdown like that,
Could be,
or,
An either or.
yeah, could be.
right.
Mhm. Yeah, I was thinking about that.
A height rule or a square footage rule.
Yeah.
There's gotta be other cities dealing with similar stuff like this, right?
I don't know.
Not really.
We've been doing some stuff that is not.
Yeah.
Because they all new construction needs to be LEED silver. They're done with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, I could see
But right
places
now, we
like
want to do that as an
downtown
incentive.
Manhattan or something doing that, because the market's there, we're kind of
Yeah, we
on the
don't,
periphery.
exactly, so while we want that, and I think everybody, I can't speak for everybody in this room, but I can speak for me, I've wanted that for a long time, but for here, we gotta take some baby steps, and let's use it as an incentive to get some redevelopment.
Well, some of these measures that we have in here might be more applicable to code changes throughout the city, right?
Oh, and they will be, but right now, it was just being put in here, in what was intended to be a priority system. Because I wanted you to go down the list and go, that's number one, that's number one, that's a number 4, that's a number 1, that's a number 2, that's a number 3, that's,
Yeah.
and then I was gonna bunch all the 1s together, all the 2s together, all the 3s and all the 4s together, and they were gonna get,
Let the lead
some,
guys do that.
some,
Yeah, let's do the-
So will they have to get some type of, how are they gonna show that they've met those points? Are they gonna have to show partial LEED certification, or have?
That's gonna be up to the building official to make that determination as he goes through their plans and goes through their paperwork.
Yeah,
Question,
give them a certification at the end.
Mhm.
How much time and money was invested in getting LEED certification? More than a week and $10.
I'm sorry.
Thing is, that may be something that John.
I've suggested that, I've suggested it,
I
and,
think we're nudging in that direction.
yeah, I've suggested that, a number of times. I'm gonna do it myself. And I should have done it years ago, because I've been so involved in this aspect of things, it's just a matter of time. But I think he looked into it, and I think that, he's had some time issues too, so hopefully he'll be able to do that.
Cost of green building's never been lower than what it is right now. It's dropped 70% since 2010.
But he was talking about getting certified.
Oh, getting certified costs like $299.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
that's the
cheap.
point. Yeah, it's not a hindrance.
It's not thousands of dollars, but it is time, it does take time.
So the question, ultimately, this is an incentive program. And when this thing is completed, will this actually be an incentive for somebody to come here and say, I really want to go all the way because that's the best thing for me?
Hopefully.
Well, like I said before, if it's not, then you change it. You'll have that flexibility as long as we can get it passed through, the voters.
I want it to
There are
remain an
financial-
incentive
There are
program.
financial incentives over time in going lead.
But that's an
Getting
incentive to the
recertified.
plan. I have no problem with that at all.
Right, but you asked are there incentives, so yes, there are. If you go over time, there are incentives.
Will it be perceived by somebody coming in wanting to do
If
this
they
project?
understand
Will they
the
perceive
building.
it as an incentive?
One thing that's occurred to me, consistent with what you're talking about, one thing that's occurred to me since our first meeting is that, that we don't have, that I know of, anybody that's in the, really, in the land development business, to kind of weigh in on this, and yeah, that would be important to me, and that wouldn't be so important to me, and you know what I
Well,
mean?
you're in the realty world, I'm in the planning and land development business, and got a businessman, and
Yeah.
And
But are any of us?
he's the reserve, the.
But are any of us at the table property development, in the
No.
property development
No.
business? And to your question, I think, I've thought about that a lot of times, and I think that, it's something, I don't mean to invalidate anything we're doing, of course, but I think that it's kind of a missing component that would be helpful to us,
We wouldn't want this work, if it goes all the way through, to be perceived by a developer as a barrier as opposed to an incentive to come here.
Well-
That's ultimately what you want to do. You want them to come here, build a 55-story building, and they have a great business plan, and the
55 foot.
return on investment is,
Yeah, not stories.
what do you say?
You said stories.
If somebody wants to put it
Well, that would be a great return.
PUD, high five. We green space all around it.
Well, I think the point is well taken, and if you want to.
There's a certain amount of hope involved in
If
what we're doing.
if you want to get, somebody who is a developer,
No, I wasn't saying that we needed to do
No,
that.
I think that's valid.
And I've actually talked to two developers that I've dealt with and, about this type of thing and gotten kind of good response. And, at the prospect of raising the maximum height on the west side of A1A. That would.
Would they come in and talk to the group?
Well, the other side of that is.
Maybe. I hadn't asked that, maybe.
You need to be careful if there were a bunch of developers or business people on this committee, then the perception would be
Absolutely.
that we were catering to them.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, that's
If
why
they're
we have
smart,
it.
if they're a smart developer, they've already worked with
They
you
know.
before, and they know that it's a smart bet.
Yeah.
I think the last thing we want is land developers coming in that don't know what they're doing, that want. to-
Correct. Well, Mike, these two people that I talked to, what I asked them about was really specifically, what do you think about raising the height to 55 feet on the west side of A1A? Do you think that would encourage more interest here? And, and that's as far as it went, but it was yes both times.
Well, I think it's
I
been.
can see that.
Well, it's been a
You forget the
deterrent. It's been a deterrent. And I think you're right. I think most everybody is using, is knowledgeable of and is using LEED or some form of LEED or some elements of LEED. It's understanding the the incentive part of it, and that we're gonna demand that and some things, but we're gonna give you stuff too. And that's the part that is the unknown out there at this point.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, I think we're good. I think are we good?
Yep.
You stuck it out.
I did.
You're great, you're great. Thank you. So, all right, I'm gonna declare us adjourned. Thank you, everybody. It was a great discussion.
Any chance
I'll take a picture.
Okay.
whatever you produce and put all of that in the packet?
Yes, yes, that's why I'm.
Well, it's fine, because I put this on,
So, if I can ask you to take these and throw them away?
Can I actually take one? I don't know, show my husband, like, I'm supposed to get, but if I could take one home.
The only thing is that I want to make sure that it's known that that's, I mean, it's just a working document, and it's, you know, I mean, right now it doesn't exist. So it's, I mean, it's invalid. To be, and you're, it's not a secret or anything, so surely you can take it, but once that happens, then it's.
Yeah, he left a while ago.
Yeah.
And, oh my God.
Isn't the sunshine law?
And so.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to make this, it's just like, yeah.
So I want to just make sure that everybody knows.
Everybody did advise that, just so you know, that if you do email me, then, you know, this is, your email becomes subject to. I remember when we started the thing, when we started the sustainability board, I mean, that was the first time I had ever, I mean, I had heard of the sunshine law before, but that was the first time I'd ever dealt with anything. And it was like, they made a huge point of it, and we each got a SallyBeach.org email address. And I asked for that when this started, when they said, hey, would you be interested in joining? Well, yeah, but I want to have
Actually,
another.
if you're, see, that's the reason I say just send your emails to Julie.
Yeah.
Because as soon as she gets it, it's a public record. You
Yeah,
don't
but
need to worry.
But it opens that email account up to scrutiny later? No?
That's the point.
Because you haven't communicated with other board members.
Yeah, now, if you send something to me on the same board, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's not in.
But if we meet with Rochelle for lunch and discuss things that.
That's okay. Now, if you and I meet with her, we were having a discussion in here before.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
But if you meet with her one-on-one, that's what council does with the city manager before a meeting. They all will talk to her
Individually, rather than.
She doesn't add time to it. She doesn't say, well, you know, Dominic said this.
Yeah.
At least she should.
Yeah.
If she does, it's caught and she's in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for clarifying that, because now that you explain that, I do recall. That's the way it
But
was.
the key is, like, I've had a city account for quite a while. I never use it to correspond with anybody. All I do is, if I'm sending an email to somebody else, and I think that somebody could construe it because I'm on the board,
Yeah.
okay, that I'm acting as a member of the board.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not,
It doesn't seem that way to you, so it might seem in that way to somebody else later.
So what I do, I just send it a blank copy back. So it's your city office. Anybody wants my stuff, it's you don't need to go to my hard. Now, if they can pull up dozens and dozens of emails, and I send to George and Tommy and somebody else, and they're all out of my